Sister Mary Catherine knelt in the dimly lit chapel, her hands clasped tightly in prayer. The scent of polished wood mingled with the faint aroma of incense that lingered in the air, creating an atmosphere both sacred and suffocating. With her head bowed, she stared at the worn wooden floor, the beauty of the sacred space contrasting sharply with the turmoil in her heart. Her mind raced, grappling with the reality that had shattered her world. A reality she never anticipated. She was pregnant. "Lord," she whispered, her voice barely above a breath. "What have I done? How can I face this?" Her heart pounded in her chest, each beat echoing her fears. She had dedicated her life to serving God, to living a life of purity and devotion. The vows she had taken felt like shackles now, binding her to expectations that seemed impossible to uphold. What would the other sisters think? What would the church say? The flickering candles cast shadows that danced on the walls, and she could almost hear the whispers of doubt. "You have betrayed your calling," they seemed to say. "You are unworthy." Tears brimmed in her eyes as she fought against the wave of despair, her soul aching for clarity. "Please, guide me," she implored, raising her eyes to the crucifix above. "Help me understand what this means for me and for my child." A soft rustle broke her concentration, pulling her from her thoughts. Sister Agnes, her mentor and a pillar of strength in the convent, entered the chapel, her presence a comforting balm to Mary Catherine's frayed nerves. Agnes was a woman of deep faith and wisdom, her silver hair pulled back in a neat bun, her eyes warm yet piercing, as if they could see straight into Mary Catherine's soul. "Child," Agnes said gently, her voice a soothing melody, "I sensed your distress. You are not alone in this." Mary Catherine looked up, her heart racing at the thought of confiding in her mentor. She hesitated, her voice faltering. "I don't know how to face this, Mother Agnes. I never imagined this would happen. I feel so lost." Agnes approached and knelt beside her, the two women sharing a sacred space of vulnerability. "You are a human being, Mary Catherine. You have emotions, desires, and yes, even mistakes. God's love is not conditional upon our purity. He sees your heart. But what about my vows?" Mary Catherine whispered, her voice cracking. "How can I reconcile this with my promise to serve him?" "Your path is not set in stone," Agnes replied softly. "Sometimes, God leads us in unexpected directions. This pregnancy, it could be a gift, a new beginning, but it will require strength, courage, and faith to navigate the challenges ahead." Mary Catherine nodded, tears spilling down her cheeks. She longed to believe Agnes's words, to find solace in the idea that her life could still have purpose, even if it diverged from the path she had chosen. The next few days passed in a blur of conflicting emotions. After Mass, Mary Catherine sought out Agnes once more, hoping for guidance. The sun filtered through the stained glass windows, casting colorful patterns on the stone floor, yet the beauty around her felt distant. She approached Agnes in the quiet garden behind the convent, where the fragrance of blooming roses hung heavy in the air. "Mother Agnes, I've been thinking," she began, her voice trembling with uncertainty. "What do I do about the child? I want to protect it, but you are torn between your commitment and your instinct to nurture." Agnes interjected gently, her eyes filled with understanding. "You must consider your heart's desire, my dear." Mary Catherine felt a weight pressing down on her, as if the very air around them had thickened. "I don't want to abandon my vows. I don't want to disappoint anyone," she confessed, her voice barely above a whisper. "Disappointment can come in many forms," Agnes replied. "You must ask yourself what will bring you peace. The world may not understand, but God knows your heart. Your journey is yours alone." As Mary Catherine walked back to her room, she reflected on Agnes's words, her mind swirling with possibilities. How could she embrace motherhood while remaining true to her faith? The thought felt like standing on the edge of a precipice, staring into the abyss below. Days later, as she sorted through her old letters and trinkets in search of clarity, a crisp envelope caught her eye. The handwriting was unfamiliar, yet the return address piqued her interest. It was from a distant uncle, someone she had heard little about but whose existence had been mentioned in passing conversations. With a mixture of curiosity and apprehension, she opened the letter and began to read. "Dear Mary Catherine," it began, "I hope this letter finds you well. I am writing to inform you of an inheritance that has been left to you. It is my wish that you accept this gift with an open heart." Her breath caught in her throat. Inheritance? She had never considered that she might be entitled to anything from a relative she hardly knew. As she read further, details about an estate and assets unfolded before her eyes, revealing a life she had never imagined. "Your late uncle was fond of you even from afar. He wished for you to have what is rightfully yours, to secure your future." The letter continued. "I urge you to visit the bank to claim your inheritance." Conflicted, Mary Catherine folded the letter and placed it gently on her desk. The idea of claiming an inheritance felt foreign, almost sinful, given her current circumstances. Yet, a flicker of hope ignited within her. Perhaps this inheritance could provide for her child a chance to build a life away from the confines of the convent. Later that evening, she found herself standing before the mirror, staring at her reflection. The woman looking back at her was not just Sister Mary Catherine. She was a mother, a daughter, and a woman faced with monumental decisions. "What do I do?" she whispered to her reflection, seeking answers in the depths of her own eyes. As the days passed, she resolved to visit the bank. The thought filled her with trepidation, yet a sense of purpose began to bloom within her. She needed to secure her child's future, to ensure that they would have a life filled with love and stability. With a deep breath, she made her way to the bank, her heart racing with each step. The bank's polished floors gleamed under the fluorescent lights, and the atmosphere buzzed with the chatter of clients and employees. Mary Catherine approached the counter, her heart pounding. As she introduced herself and inquired about the inheritance, the teller's eyes lit up with curiosity. "Ah, Sister Mary Catherine, I've heard about your situation," the teller said, her tone surprisingly warm. "Let me connect you with someone who can assist you further." Moments later, a friendly banker named Jack approached her, extending a hand. "It's a pleasure to meet you. I understand you have some inquiries about an inheritance." "Yes," Mary Catherine replied, her voice steady despite the whirlwind of emotions within her. "I received a letter from my late uncle regarding an estate." "Let's get started, then," Jack said, gesturing for her to follow him to a private office. As they entered, Mary Catherine felt a mixture of excitement and fear. What awaited her on this journey? Little did she know that the revelations unfolding before her would irrevocably alter the course of her life, intertwining her past and future in ways she could never have imagined. Sister Mary Catherine stepped into the bank, the heavy oak door creaking open to reveal a pristine lobby filled with the scent of polished wood and fresh paper. The high ceilings and intricate chandeliers overhead seemed to mock her turmoil, their beauty contrasting sharply with the chaos in her heart. Clad in her simple habit, she felt out of place amongst the well-dressed patrons, their sharp suits and elegant dresses a stark reminder of the world she had distanced herself from. Yet, she steeled herself, reminding herself that she was here for her child, to secure a future that had suddenly become uncertain. "Good morning," a warm voice greeted her, pulling her from her thoughts. A friendly banker with tousled brown hair and bright blue eyes approached her, extending a hand. "I'm Jack, and I'll be assisting you today." Mary Catherine hesitated for a moment, then took his hand, feeling the firm grip and kindness in his demeanor. "Good morning, Jack. I'm Sister Mary Catherine. I received a letter about an inheritance from my late uncle." "Ah, yes, I have the documents right here." Jack smiled, motioning for her to follow him to a small conference room lined with bookshelves and soft leather seats. As they walked, Mary Catherine couldn't shake the feeling that this man's curiosity about her was palpable. It wasn't often that nuns entered banks, let alone ones with inheritance claims. Once seated, Jack spread out the papers on the table, his expression shifting to one of professionalism. "So, Sister Mary Catherine, your uncle left you quite a considerable estate. This includes a house in a small town, along with several other assets." It's worth millions. Mary Catherine's heart raced as she scanned the documents. There was a mixture of excitement and dread swirling within her. I didn't even know I had an uncle until a few days ago, she admitted, her voice barely above a whisper. What am I supposed to do with all this? Jack leaned forward, his eyes filled with compassion. First, let's take it one step at a time. The house is in good condition, but it may need some repairs. Have you thought about what you want to do with it? Sell it? Live in it? Mary Catherine felt the weight of the world on her shoulders, the implications of her choices suddenly overwhelming. I have a child on the way, she confessed, her cheeks flushing. I need to think about their future. Of course, Jack replied, nodding. That changes everything. You could renovate the house and create a home, or you could sell it and use the funds for your child's education. There are many possibilities. As they sifted through the paperwork, Mary Catherine's initial apprehension began to fade, replaced by a glimmer of hope. She could visualize a cozy home filled with laughter, a safe space for her child to grow, but the fear of the unknown loomed large. What if I'm not cut out to be a mother? She murmured, her voice cracking. Jack paused, looking at her with sincerity. Sister Mary Catherine, you're already thinking about your child's future, which shows you care deeply. Being a mother is about love and commitment, not perfection. His words struck a chord within her, igniting a flicker of confidence. Thank you, Jack. I appreciate your kindness. It's just, everything feels so complicated right now. Before Jack could respond, the door swung open, and a tall, elegantly dressed woman entered the room. Mary Catherine felt a chill run down her spine as the woman's piercing gaze locked onto her. The stranger's presence was commanding, and an unshakable sense of familiarity washed over Mary Catherine, though she couldn't place it. Excuse me, the woman said, her voice smooth yet unsettling. I couldn't help but overhear your conversation. Mary Catherine exchanged a glance with Jack, who looked equally taken aback. Can I help you? Mary Catherine replied, trying to keep her voice steady. The woman stepped closer, her gaze never wavering. I'm Clara. I knew your uncle well. He spoke of you often. She paused, her expression shifting, as if gauging Mary Catherine's response. I also know about your situation. Mary Catherine felt her heart race. What do you mean? My situation? Clara smiled, but there was an edge to it. I know about your pregnancy and the inheritance. It's important you understand what you're stepping into. Jack shifted uncomfortably in his seat, glancing between the two women. Is there a problem here? He asked, concern etching his features. No problem at all, Clara replied, her voice dripping with calmness. I just think Sister Mary Catherine should be aware of the complexities surrounding her uncle's estate. Mary Catherine felt a knot tighten in her stomach. What do you mean? What complexities? Clara's gaze softened momentarily, but the intensity of her presence remained. Let's just say that your uncle's life wasn't as simple as it seems on paper. There are shadows that linger. You need to be careful. What shadows? Mary Catherine pressed, her curiosity mingling with unease. Clara leaned in, her voice barely above a whisper. Let's just say that not everyone is happy about your inheritance. There are those who may want to ensure it doesn't come to you. A chill swept through Mary Catherine, and she felt the walls of the bank closing in on her. You're scaring me, Jack interjected, trying to diffuse the tension. Clara, perhaps you could explain further, but in a more private setting? This isn't the time or place. Clara regarded him coolly before nodding. Very well. Sister Mary Catherine, I would suggest we meet outside of here. There's much to discuss about your uncle and what you've inherited. With a heavy heart, Mary Catherine glanced at Jack, who offered her a reassuring nod. It's your decision. Just be careful. As Clara and Mary Catherine left the bank, the cold air hit her like a gust of wind, invigorating yet disquieting. The sun was shining, but within her, a storm was brewing. She felt as if she were walking into a web spun with secrets and dangers she could hardly comprehend. Where do you want to go? Clara asked, her tone shifting to one of practicality. Mary Catherine hesitated, I suppose we could go to a cafe nearby. Perfect, Clara replied, a hint of satisfaction in her voice. As they walked side by side, Mary Catherine's mind raced. Who was this woman? What did she know about her uncle? And what did she mean by shadows? As they reached the cafe, Clara secured a small table in the corner, away from prying eyes. Mary Catherine took a seat, her heart pounding in her chest. What do you know about my uncle? She asked, her voice steadying as determination took over. Clara leaned back, her expression contemplative. Your uncle was a complicated man. He had ties to people you wouldn't want to associate with. There are reasons he kept his distance from the family. Mary Catherine's mind reeled. What are you saying? Clara's gaze bore into her. I'm saying that your inheritance may come with strings attached. You need to be prepared for whatever may come next. The weight of Clara's words hung heavy in the air, and Mary Catherine felt a mixture of fear and resolve. The road ahead was uncertain, but one thing was clear. She would protect her child at all costs, even if it meant confronting the shadows of her family's past. Sister Mary Catherine sat at a small cafe table, her hands wrapped around a steaming cup of coffee, the warmth seeping into her fingers, a stark contrast to the turmoil swirling inside her. The cafe was quaint, its walls adorned with photographs of smiling families and vibrant landscapes, but she felt a world away from any sense of joy. Across from her, Clara, the mysterious woman she had just met, stirred her own coffee, her expression a mix of intrigue and concern. Thank you for inviting me, Clara said, her voice smooth yet laced with an undercurrent of urgency. I know this must be overwhelming for you. Mary Catherine nodded, her heart racing as she recalled the unsettling encounter at the bank. Clara had approached her with an air of familiarity, asserting herself as a family friend of her late uncle. Yet, there was something in Clara's eyes, an intensity that suggested she knew more than she was letting on. I still can't believe I'm inheriting anything at all, she admitted, glancing down at her coffee. This was all so sudden. I didn't even know my uncle existed until now. Clara leaned forward, her elbows resting on the table, her gaze unwavering. Your uncle was a complicated man, Mary Catherine. He had his secrets, and I fear they might affect you more than you realize. The inheritance you're about to claim could come with strings attached. Strings? Mary Catherine repeated, her brow furrowing. What do you mean? Clara hesitated for a moment, as if weighing her words carefully. There were whispers about your uncle, rumors that he had dealings with people who were less than savory. I've heard tales of a family scandal that could put you in danger if you're not careful. A chill ran down Mary Catherine's spine. What kind of danger? She asked, her voice barely above a whisper. I can't say for certain, but he was involved in something that could come back to haunt those who inherit from him. His past isn't just a shadow. It's a presence that looms over this estate. Clara paused, searching Mary Catherine's eyes for understanding. I want to help you navigate this. You don't have to go through it alone. Mary Catherine took a deep breath, feeling the weight of her situation settle heavily on her shoulders. I have so many responsibilities back at the convent. I can't just abandon my life there. Your life is changing, Mary Catherine. You can't ignore that, Clara replied gently. This child you're carrying, it's a new beginning, isn't it? You owe it to yourself and to your child to understand what you're stepping into. Maybe you're right, Mary Catherine conceded, feeling a mix of anxiety and determination. But how can I trust you? I barely know you. Clara smiled, a hint of warmth breaking through her serious demeanor. Fair enough. Let's start with the truth. My name is Clara, and yes, I was a friend of your uncle. We met many years ago, and I've kept an eye on the family from a distance. I want to see you succeed, not just for your sake, but for your child's. Mary Catherine studied Clara's face, searching for any sign of deceit. If you're truly here to help, then tell me everything you know. Clara shifted in her seat, her expression turning serious again. Your uncle lived a double life. On the surface, he was a respectable man, but beneath that facade, he was involved in activities that would shock you. He had enemies, Mary Catherine, people who wouldn't hesitate to come after what he left behind. Mary Catherine's heart raced. What kind of activities? What did he do? He was involved in some questionable business dealings, Clara explained. There were allegations of fraud and even ties to organized crime. I'm not saying he was a monster, but he certainly had his demons. And those demons didn't just disappear when he passed. A silence fell between them, the weight of Clara's words hanging in the air like a storm cloud. Mary Catherine felt the walls of her world closing in, the life she had known slipping through her fingers. I don't want to believe it, she murmured, her voice trembling. I just wanted to find a way to secure a future for my child. Clara reached out, placing a reassuring hand over Mary Catherine's. You still can, but you need to be vigilant. The inheritance might have been intended as a blessing, but it could also become a curse if you're not prepared. Mary Catherine's phone buzzed on the table, breaking the tension. She glanced at the screen and saw a message from Mother Agnes. Asterisk, Mary Catherine, please return to the convent. We need to talk. Asterisk, her heart sank. The weight of her decision pressed heavily on her chest. I have to go, Mary Catherine said abruptly, her mind racing. Mother Agnes is calling for me. Clara nodded, though a hint of concern flickered in her eyes. I understand. Just promise me you'll think about what we've discussed. There's a lot at stake, and I can help you through it. I will, Mary Catherine replied, though uncertainty gnawed at her. She stood, her chair scraping against the tile floor, and hurried out of the cafe, the cool air hitting her face like a splash of cold water. As she walked back to the convent, her mind was a whirlwind of thoughts. The life she'd built, her vows, her faith. Everything felt precarious in light of the revelations about her uncle and the inheritance. She had always known that life could be full of surprises, but this was beyond anything she had ever imagined. When she arrived at the convent, the familiar silence enveloped her, but it felt different now. Each step echoed through the hallowed halls, amplifying her inner turmoil. She pushed open the heavy wooden door to the chapel, where Mother Agnes waited, her expression a mixture of concern and understanding. Mary Catherine, there you are, Mother Agnes said, her voice soothing. I was beginning to worry. You've been gone for quite some time. I was at the bank and then I met someone, Mary Catherine replied, her voice trembling slightly. She could feel the weight of her encounter with Clara pressing down on her. She told me things about my uncle, things I never knew. Mother Agnes regarded her with a mixture of empathy and caution. What things, my child? About his life? His past? Mary Catherine said, struggling to find the right words. She hinted at a family scandal, something that could put me in danger. Danger? Mother Agnes's brow furrowed in concern. What kind of danger? I don't know yet, Mary Catherine admitted, feeling the tears welling in her eyes. I just feel so lost, Mother. I don't know what to do. I have this child to think about, and now this inheritance. It's all so overwhelming. Mother Agnes stepped closer, placing a comforting hand on Mary Catherine's shoulder. You are not alone in this. We will face it together as a community. But first, you must take care of yourself and your child. Your well-being is paramount. Mary Catherine nodded, her heart aching with the weight of her decisions. She wanted to be strong, to find a way to balance her duties to the convent and her new responsibilities as a mother, but the path ahead felt uncertain. The world outside was changing, and she could feel the winds of fate shifting around her. Let's pray, Mother Agnes suggested, guiding Mary Catherine to the altar. As they knelt together in silence, Mary Catherine closed her eyes, seeking solace in her faith. She prayed not just for guidance but for clarity in the storm that threatened to engulf her. In that moment, she realized that no matter what lay ahead, she would face it with courage. The child she carried was a part of her, a new life filled with potential. And though the shadows of her uncle's past loomed large, she would not allow fear to dictate her choices. She would uncover the truth, protect her child, and embrace whatever future awaited her, no matter how daunting it seemed. The early afternoon sun filtered through the stained glass windows of the convent, casting colorful patterns on the stone floor as Sister Mary Catherine entered the chapel. The air was heavy with the scent of burning candles and the faint echoes of whispered prayers. Yet, the atmosphere felt different today. An electric tension filled the room, and her fellow nuns, usually bustling with routine, were unusually quiet, their eyes filled with concern as they glanced her way. Sister Agnes approached, her expression a mix of compassion and worry. "Mary Catherine," she said softly, her voice barely above a whisper, "we've been speaking amongst ourselves. We're all concerned about you and your health. You must take care of yourself and that precious life you carry." Mary Catherine nodded, feeling the weight of their concern pressing down on her. It was as if the walls were closing in, filled with unspoken fears and expectations. "I'm trying, Sister Agnes. It's just, everything feels so overwhelming." She struggled to maintain her composure, the words tumbling out like a confession. "I thought my life had a clear path, but now I feel lost." "Lost is a word that many use in moments of uncertainty," Sister Agnes replied, placing a comforting hand on Mary Catherine's shoulder. "But you must also seek guidance. Father Thomas is here. He has a way of providing clarity in dark times." "I know," Mary Catherine sighed, her heart heavy. She had always revered Father Thomas for his wisdom, but the thought of sharing her turmoil with him made her stomach churn. "I just don't know if I can bear to face him with all this." "Facing the truth is often the first step to healing," Sister Agnes encouraged gently. "Perhaps it's time to share your burden. You don't have to carry this alone." With a reluctant nod, Mary Catherine agreed. The idea of speaking to Father Thomas brought a flicker of hope amid her doubts. She took a deep breath, steeling herself for the conversation ahead. The chapel, once a sanctuary, now felt like a place of judgment. Later that day, as the sun began to set, casting long shadows across the chapel, Mary Catherine found herself seated opposite Father Thomas in his modest office. The room was adorned with bookshelves filled with theological texts, and the air was thick with the scent of old paper and polished wood. Father Thomas, a kind man with a gentle demeanor, studied her intently, his eyes filled with understanding. "Mary Catherine," he began, his voice steady yet comforting. "I've noticed you've been carrying a heavy heart lately. What troubles you?" She hesitated, searching for the right words. "Father, I'm expecting a child," she finally confessed, her voice trembling slightly. "And I don't know how to reconcile this with my vows and my life here in the convent." Father Thomas leaned back in his chair, his expression shifting from concern to contemplation. "This is indeed a complicated situation. Your commitment to the church is profound, but so is the gift of motherhood. It's only natural to feel torn." "I feel like I'm betraying my vows," she admitted, tears brimming in her eyes. "But I also feel a deep connection to this child. It's as if I've been awakened to a reality I never knew existed." "Awakening can be painful," he said, nodding thoughtfully. "But perhaps it's not a betrayal. The divine often works in mysterious ways. Have you considered that this child could be part of a greater plan?" Mary Catherine paused, absorbing his words. "I want to believe that, Father, but I fear that my choices will have consequences for both my life and the life of my child. What if I can't fulfill my duties here? What if I am not meant to be a mother?" "Every journey of faith is filled with doubt," Father Thomas replied gently. "But remember, God does not abandon those who seek him. You must pray for guidance and reflect on your path. It's essential to find peace within yourself before deciding how to move forward." The weight of his words settled over her, yet Mary Catherine felt a growing sense of isolation. She could sense a widening chasm between her life in the convent and the life she was about to embark on as a mother. Each step felt like a journey into the unknown, and the fear of losing her identity as Sister Mary Catherine loomed large. After leaving Father Thomas's office, her thoughts spiraled. She wandered through the convent's gardens, where the vibrant blooms seemed to mock her turmoil. The laughter of children playing in the distance tugged at her heartstrings, reminding her of the innocence and joy that motherhood could bring. But that joy felt far removed from her current reality. That night, As Mary Catherine lay in her small bed, sleep eluded her. Thoughts raced through her mind, and as exhaustion finally claimed her, she slipped into a vivid dream. She found herself in a sun-drenched field, the air filled with the sweet scent of wildflowers. Laughter echoed around her, and she turned to see a boy running toward her, his hair tousled by the wind. "Come play with me, Mary," he called, his eyes sparkling with mischief. There was something familiar about him, something that tugged at her memory. They ran together, their laughter ringing out like music, until they reached the edge of a small pond. The boy knelt down, splashing water playfully, and she joined him, their giggles blending with the sound of rippling water. Suddenly, the dream shifted. The boy's face grew serious, and he looked at her with a knowing expression. "You have to remember, Mary, we're family. You're not alone." Mary Catherine awoke with a start, her heart racing. The dream felt so real, yet it left her with an unsettling sense of confusion. Who was the boy? Family? The word echoed in her mind, sparking a curiosity she couldn't shake. She sat up, the remnants of the dream swirling around her like a ghost. What did it mean? The thought of family brought back memories of her childhood, but they were fragmented, hazy. She couldn't recall having a brother, yet the connection she felt in the dream was undeniable. It was as if the boy had touched a piece of her past she had long forgotten. As the dawn broke, casting soft light into her room, Mary Catherine knew she couldn't ignore the dream's significance. It felt like a message, a reminder that her life was intertwined with something greater than herself. Perhaps the boy was a symbol of the family she was now rediscovering through her inheritance. Was there more to her past than she had ever realized? Determined to find answers, she rose from her bed, ready to seek the truth that lay hidden beneath the layers of her life. She felt a newfound resolve to uncover the secrets of her family, to understand the connections that bound her to her past and, ultimately, to her child. The journey ahead was uncertain, but she could no longer ignore the call to explore the depths of her identity and heritage. The threads of her life were woven together in ways she had yet to understand, and she was prepared to untangle them, one step at a time. Sister Mary Catherine sat across from Clara in a quaint cafe nestled in the heart of the town where the estate resided. The aroma of freshly brewed coffee mingled with the sweet scent of pastries, yet the atmosphere felt heavy with the weight of their conversation. Clara leaned forward, her dark eyes glinting with urgency. "Your uncle was involved in something that could affect your inheritance," Clara began, her voice barely above a whisper. "It's not just a simple estate, Mary Catherine. There are layers to this, dark layers." Mary Catherine felt her heart race. "What do you mean? What kind of scandal?" Clara glanced around the cafe, ensuring no one was eavesdropping before she continued. "Years ago, your uncle was implicated in a series of illegal activities. There were rumors of money laundering, but it was all hushed up. The family had to protect itself, and I fear they might still be watching." A chill ran down Mary Catherine's spine. She had always been taught to trust in divine providence, yet the idea that her inheritance could be tainted by her uncle's past filled her with dread. "If this is true, does that mean I shouldn't claim the estate?" Clara shook her head. "You need to dig deeper. There are documents hidden away that could reveal the truth. If your uncle was involved in something illegal, it could put you and your child in danger. But if you can prove your innocence, you may be able to secure your future." Feeling a mix of apprehension and determination, Mary Catherine nodded. "I need to know what I'm getting into. Where do I begin?" "Follow the money," Clara replied, her voice steady. "There might be records at the estate itself. Your uncle's office could hold the key, but be cautious. You're not the only one interested in this information." Mary Catherine felt a knot form in her stomach. "What do you mean?" "I've seen signs. Someone is watching you, someone who doesn't want these secrets to come out," Clara said, her expression grave. Mary Catherine's mind raced as she tried to process Clara's warning. "How do you know this?" "I have my ways," Clara replied, her tone evasive. "Just trust me. Be vigilant." After finishing their coffees, they left the cafe, and Clara suggested they visit the estate together. As they walked, Mary Catherine's thoughts spun in a whirlwind. The estate, once a symbol of newfound hope, now felt like a looming shadow, harboring secrets that could threaten her child's future. Once they arrived at the estate, the sunlight cast a warm glow over the expansive grounds, but Mary Catherine felt cold inside. The house, with its grand facade and intricate details, seemed to hold its breath, waiting for them to uncover its mysteries. "Let's start in the study," Clara suggested, leading the way. The room was filled with old books and dusty furniture, remnants of a life once lived. Mary Catherine felt a pang of nostalgia mixed with unease as she stepped inside, her hand grazing over the mahogany desk. "Do you think he kept records here?" Mary Catherine asked, her voice trembling slightly. "Most likely," Clara replied, rummaging through drawers. He was meticulous about his affairs. As they searched through stacks of papers, the tension between them thickened. Mary Catherine discovered documents related to property transactions and bank statements but found nothing incriminating. "Keep looking," Clara urged, her brow furrowed. "There has to be something." Just then, Mary Catherine spotted a small, leather-bound journal tucked away in a corner of the desk. The cover was cracked, and the pages yellowed with age. Her heart raced as she opened it, revealing her uncle's neat handwriting. "Clara, look at this," she exclaimed, flipping through the pages. "It's his journal." Clara leaned in closer, her eyes scanning the entries. "This could be it. Read it aloud." Mary Catherine cleared her throat, her voice trembling slightly. "November 12th, 1998. The deal went through, but the risks are higher than I anticipated. I've spoken to Marcus about the next steps. We can't let anyone find out about the money." "Who's Marcus?" Clara asked, her brow raised. "I don't know," Mary Catherine replied, flipping through more pages. "There are several mentions of him. It seems he was involved in whatever was happening." "Keep going," Clara urged. As Mary Catherine read on, she found more references to money and transactions that didn't seem legitimate. "It looks like he was in too deep. There are several entries about feeling trapped and needing to protect the family name." Clara's expression darkened. "This is worse than I thought. If he was involved in money laundering, that could implicate you too, especially since you're the heir." Mary Catherine's mind reeled. "What do I do? I can't let my child inherit this mess." "Let's keep digging," Clara insisted. "There must be something here that can clear your name." With renewed determination, they continued their search, but the shadows in the room seemed to grow darker. Suddenly, Mary Catherine caught a glimpse of movement outside the window. She turned, her heart racing. "Did you see that?" she whispered, her voice barely audible. "What?" Clara asked, glancing around. "I thought I saw someone watching us," Mary Catherine replied, her pulse quickening. Clara's eyes widened. "We need to be careful. If someone is indeed watching, we can't risk being seen here too long." Mary Catherine's throat felt dry as she quickly tucked the journal under her arm. "We should leave. I'll come back later when it's safer." As they made their way out, a sense of urgency hung in the air. The weight of the unknown pressed upon Mary Catherine's shoulders, and she felt the protective instinct for her unborn child surge within her. She had to uncover the truth, not only for herself but for the life growing inside her. Once outside, Clara glanced over her shoulder, her expression tense. "We need to find a secure place to talk. Somewhere we can plan our next steps without being interrupted." Mary Catherine nodded, her mind racing with the implications of Clara's words. "I know a quiet park nearby. It's secluded and should be safe." As they walked to the park, Mary Catherine couldn't shake the feeling of being followed. The world around her seemed eerily quiet, as if it held its breath in anticipation of what was to come. She cast furtive glances over her shoulder, expecting to see the shadows lurking behind her. When they finally reached the park, the air felt fresher, yet the tension remained. They found a bench tucked away behind a cluster of trees, providing a sense of privacy. "Let's go over what we've found," Clara said, her voice low. "We need to strategize." Mary Catherine took a deep breath, forcing herself to focus. "We need to figure out who Marcus is and what role he played in all of this. If he's still alive, he might know something that could help us. Clara nodded, her expression serious. And we need to stay vigilant. If someone is watching, we can't let them catch on to what we're doing. As they sat together, plotting their next move, Mary Catherine felt a surge of determination. She was no longer just a nun grappling with her faith. She was a mother willing to fight for her child's future, no matter the cost. The shadows of her uncle's past might be closing in, but she would not let them define her. Whatever it takes, she whispered, her resolve solidifying. I will protect my child. The atmosphere in the small cafe was thick with tension as Sister Mary Catherine sat across from Clara, her heart racing. The clinking of cups and the soft murmur of conversations around them faded into the background, replaced by the pounding of her own pulse. The revelation that Clara was her half-sister had left her reeling, and now, questions swirled in her mind like a tempest. Clara, how can this be true? Mary Catherine's voice trembled, a mixture of disbelief and desperation. We were raised so differently. How did you even find me? Clara leaned in closer, her expression serious. I've spent years trying to piece together the fragments of our family history. When I found out about the inheritance, I knew it was time to reach out. Our father, he wasn't just a man who made mistakes. He was part of a world filled with secrets, and it's time we faced them together. Mary Catherine felt a knot tighten in her stomach. The inheritance. It was meant to keep us safe? Safe from what? From him, Clara replied, her voice barely a whisper. From the rival family. They've been watching us, waiting for the right moment to strike. Our uncle left that estate not just as a gift, but as a shield against the darkness that looms over us. Mary Catherine's fingers curled around her coffee cup, the warmth grounding her amidst the whirlwind of emotions. I never even knew I had a sister, let alone a family that was in danger. What do we do now? Clara took a deep breath, her determination shining through her fear. We need to gather as much information as possible. The more we know about our family's past, the better equipped we'll be to protect ourselves. We can't let them take what's rightfully ours. Not now, with your child on the way. The mention of her unborn child sent a wave of protectiveness coursing through Mary Catherine. She nodded, her mind racing with thoughts of how to secure a future for the baby she had yet to meet. But how do we begin? I feel so lost in all of this. Clara's eyes softened. We start with the estate. If we can access the documents your uncle left behind, we might uncover more about the threats we face. We'll need to be careful, though. There are people who wouldn't hesitate to silence us. Mary Catherine's heart sank at the thought. The weight of her situation pressed down on her, but as she looked into Clara's eyes, she felt a flicker of hope. You're right. We have to do this together. I can't fight this battle alone anymore. As the two women plotted their next steps, a sense of camaraderie began to blossom between them, bridging the gap of years spent apart. They were bound not just by blood, but by a shared resolve to reclaim their lives and secure a future free from fear. Later that evening, as the sun dipped below the horizon, painting the sky in hues of orange and pink, Mary Catherine returned to the convent. The familiar scent of incense wafted through the air, grounding her in the sacred space she had called home. Yet, tonight, everything felt different. The walls that once provided solace now felt like a cage, enclosing her in a life that seemed increasingly incompatible with her newfound identity as a mother and sister. Mary Catherine, Mother Agnes's voice echoed through the corridor, pulling her from her thoughts. The elder nun approached, concern etched on her face. You've been gone for quite some time. Is everything all right? Mary Catherine hesitated, her heart heavy with the burden of her secrets. I've learned some things about my family, Mother. Important things. Mother Agnes's brow furrowed, the wisdom in her eyes deepening. You must share, dear. Holding on to burdens can lead to despair. Taking a deep breath, Mary Catherine decided to confide in her mentor. I found out that I have a sister, Clara, and our family has a dark past, one that threatens my child's future. The older woman's expression softened as she listened intently. Family can be both a blessing and a curse. But remember, Mary Catherine, God has a plan for you. Hold onto your faith, even in the darkest times. I want to believe that, Mary Catherine replied, her voice barely above a whisper. But how can I protect my child when I'm still trying to figure out my own path? Mother Agnes placed a reassuring hand on her shoulder. Trust in yourself, and trust in the bond you've formed with this sister. Together, you may uncover the strength you didn't know you had. The conversation lingered in Mary Catherine's mind long after she returned to her room. She knelt by her bed, her thoughts a whirlwind of confusion and fear. God, guide me through this, she prayed softly. Help me protect my child and uncover the truth about my family. The following days were filled with a sense of urgency as Mary Catherine and Clara delved deeper into the complexities of their family history. They spent hours at the local library, poring over old newspaper articles and public records, searching for any clues that could shed light on their past. Each revelation brought with it new questions, deepening the mystery that surrounded their inheritance. One afternoon, as they sifted through dusty files, Clara stumbled upon an article from years ago detailing a violent feud between their family and the rival clan. "Look at this," she said, her voice tinged with excitement. "This explains so much about why our uncle kept us apart. He was trying to protect us from the fallout." Mary Catherine scanned the page, her heart racing as she read about the escalation of tensions and the tragic events that had unfolded. "It's like our family was trapped in a cycle of vengeance," she murmured. "How do we break free from it?" Clara looked determined. "By standing together. We need to confront the truth and claim what's ours. We can't let fear dictate our lives any longer." As they continued their investigation, the pieces of their family puzzle began to fit together, revealing a tangled web of betrayal, loyalty, and sacrifice. With each revelation, the bond between the sisters strengthened, as did their resolve to protect Mary Catherine's child from the shadows of their past. One evening, after a particularly exhausting day of digging through records, they sat on the porch of the estate, the moon casting a silvery glow around them. Mary Catherine took a deep breath, inhaling the cool night air, filled with the scent of blooming flowers. "I never imagined I would find a sister, let alone uncover such a tangled history," she said, her voice thoughtful. Clara nodded, her gaze fixed on the stars above. "Sometimes the paths we walk lead us to unexpected places, but I believe our journey has greater purpose. Together, we can rewrite our family's story." Mary Catherine smiled, her heart swelling with gratitude for the sister she had only just discovered. "I'm so glad you're here, Clara. I can't imagine facing this alone. For the first time, I feel like I'm not just fighting for myself, but for my child and for us." With the weight of the past heavy on their shoulders, the sisters embraced their newfound bond, ready to face whatever challenges lay ahead. Their hearts were intertwined by blood and the promise of a brighter future, one filled with hope and resilience. They were determined to reclaim their inheritance, confront their family's dark legacy, and ensure that Mary Catherine's child would grow up free from the shadows that had haunted them for too long. Together, they would weave a new narrative, a testament to the power of love and the unbreakable ties of family.